Hi everyone, it's time for another live look at the astrology. My name is Katie Sweetman, and this is your look at the astrology for March 17th through 23rd, 2025. So happy St. Patrick's Day. But other than that, we are in eclipse season. And as you may know from last week, certainly last week's update, I talked all about the Virgo eclipse. So we had a Virgo lunar eclipse, a full moon, and this was on the 14th of March. And when we are in eclipse season, this happens every 6 months like clockwork. It is a time for life to sort of change gears. That's the thing about life, is that we need that movement. And I've even called eclipses the engine of time because, as you hear me say every week, not just the astrology is 50% and you're the other 50%, but astrology is time. It's just the energy of time, and it's how we live time. And of course, how do you live your part of the astrology, or your 50%, of course. But we have eclipse season, we have Aries season this week. That's our other big headliner. So the sun will go into Aries on March 20th. So I believe that's Thursday. And we kick off not only a new season, but a new astrological year. So before I get too far along, just to reintroduce myself, my name is Katie Sweetman, and every week we gather live to look at the astrology. And again, you hear me say every week, the astrology is 50%. You are the other 50%. And presently I'm located in Maryland, and yeah, so we've been doing this. I've actually been doing this since 2019, so it's been a while. But for those that are watching live, as always, do say hello. It's nice to see where people are watching from. So how are you doing with eclipse season? That's not to expect any disasters, of course not. It's just to sort of look and see, where are things shifting? Where do you see new energies coming into your life? We will have one more eclipse, and this will be a solar eclipse on March 29th of 2025. So just about a week and a half or so from now. And just to go back to that Virgo lunar eclipse, that eclipse that we had, it's actually the second in a series of eclipses that will go back and forth between Virgo and Pisces into even the beginning of 2027. Eclipses unfold roughly in an 18 to 24 month period. The lunar nodes themselves are in two signs of the zodiac for 18 months. So we are swifting. We are I can't speak. We are shifting. We are shifting, and we have shifted into this different dynamic since January, because the eclipses, the lunar nodes, they shifted on January 11th. And the lunar nodes, apart from the fact that that's what makes eclipses happen, it's a path that time takes. It's a path that the energy that time takes. And we would need to go back to, say, 2015, 2016, 2006, 2007, 1997, 1998, 1988, 1989, and even if I went back even further, 1978, 1979, to see when we have Virgo and Pisces eclipses. And it's not to say that you're like, oh my gosh, like that time in my life was either great or not great. It's not going to be the same. It's just going to be different. And so life builds around a point. So if we go back to that eclipse on the 14th, it was at 23 degrees of Virgo. So now we know that 23 degrees of Virgo is going to be like a hot point. Maybe there's a different way to put it, but it's a point in the sky that things will build upon pretty predictably. How so? So every time the moon, because we're talking about eclipses, we're talking about the lunar nodes, every time the moon gets to around 23 degrees of the mutable signs, so that's Gemini, that's Virgo, that's Sagittarius and Pisces, we may see events or themes that build around this eclipse. And even so, we had an eclipse on September 17th, so just 6 months ago, and that eclipse was at 25 Pisces. So roughly opposite in the sky. So now we have these 2 points within a story that's going to take us into the end of 2026 and even into the beginning of 2027, and things will build around those points. So those 4 points, if I were to draw that within the circle of the zodiac wheel, I would get a square. And that's the thing, the square is the energy of manifestation. It's how things happen in lives. And it's one of the reasons why as an astrologer, I focus more on the squares and the trines, because the squares tell us where things are happening. It's a little bit of a technical point. So for us, it's just to start to pay attention to those degrees. And similarly, because we have a solar eclipse on March 29th, and that will be at 9 degrees of Aries, it will start to build around that 9-degree point of the cardinal signs, because Aries is a cardinal sign. So this is how your astrology sausage is made. This idea of time and how time unfolds and these different chapters, I actually talked about that in my Eclipse webinar. So I did a whole presentation along with a sign-by-sign guide that you can still get. It's on my website, empoweringastrology.com. It's the eclipses of March of 2025. It's even, the link is in the show notes. But yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about eclipses in the sense that I know people get nervous. Don't be nervous. Life is just gonna life. But here's a simple example, because I always try to pay attention to who's in the news, apart from the usual characters, because you will typically see the eclipses doing stuff. So a very classic example of the eclipse energy unfolding is, I don't know if you pay attention, but Donatella Versace stepped down from helming, hopefully I'm saying this correctly, helming Versace, and she had taken over in 1997. There's that year again that I said when her brother was murdered. I know it's under tragic circumstances. If you look at her astrology, she's born on May 2nd of 1955. She's a Taurus, for those that could put that together. She even has Taurus rising. Her birth data, by the way, is on astrodatabank.com, and she has a Virgo moon. So Virgo, mutable. That moon is at 17 degrees at Virgo. And she even has the nodes, her own lunar nodes, in Sagittarius and Gemini. So while not Virgo Pisces, we can see that in her astrology that perhaps major life events might happen in the mutable signs, without going into a whole long explanation. So it's just an example of, I even used it in my webinar, the eclipses of March of 2025, that more than a couple of things happen, but one of the things that happens during eclipse seasons is that fortunes rise and fall. That's a very typical way in which eclipses manifest. And that's somebody who's stepping into the spotlight. It's not to say her fortune will rise or fall, but I also use this analogy is that eclipses are like the curtain coming down on one act of our life and coming up on another. So she certainly made a curtain call, metaphorically speaking, perhaps literally speaking, and she is leaving that chapter of her life, and that chapter of her life that began, I can't even do the math, like what, 25 years ago. So that's 3 different cycles. I think it's a cycle and a half of the eclipses in total. So that's just to show that we have periods in our life where we are in transition. You know, one chapter of our life, or one, in the case of Donatella Versace, like one bigger chapter of her life is coming to an end. So then the eclipses will bring in something new, depending on the person. So that's just an example for us to look at as you know, how the eclipses can really manifest in real time. So we are still in the space between the eclipses. It is a space when time feels a little bit funny, because eclipses tend to like bend time. They open doorways, and I don't use the word portals and doorways lightly, but it is a time when things want to come in and out of our life. So it's for us to start to pay attention if we're not already, and to see where we see those natural transition points. Maybe your dreams are more vivid than usual. We have the North Node today conjunct The sun, we have this week, we have the sun conjunct Neptune. That's on the 19th of March. And so maybe things are just a little bit weird, a little bit wonky, we're a little bit tired. And maybe there's a sense that something's on the horizon because we are transitioning into a new chapter with that Aries solar eclipse that closes out a previous chapter that began on October 2nd. And the chapter before that was April 8th of 2024. That was the eclipse that was visible in most of North America. And then before that, we had the eclipse that was on October 14th of 2023. So we sort of start to follow, hopefully, the dots. So yeah, life is gonna life. I mean, I've shared this before. I've got a North Node at 23, 24, depending on how you look at it, depending if it's true node or mean, at 23, 24 of Virgo. So yeah, I had a lunar eclipse on my North Node. We will see what happens. Certainly I can say objectively that the times in my life of 2015, 16, 2006, 2007, 1997, 1998, can't speak about 88, 89, I was in 4th grade. A lot of things were happening at that time. So life is gonna life. And this week, as I was saying, we, in addition to being between the eclipses, we are wrapping up the astrological year. So in astrology, if astrology is time, metaphoric time, symbolic time, time doesn't start, the year doesn't start on January 1st. It actually starts with the spring, well, I was going to say the spring equinox for those that are here in the Northern Hemisphere, or the fall equinox for those that are in the Southern Hemisphere, because I realize we are an international pan-hemisphere audience. So with the sun arriving in Aries, this will be, I think, at 5. I wrote it down. I did not write it down. I think it's like 5. No, I did write it down. It is at 5:01 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, because the clocks have changed here in the United States. So when the sun arrives in Aries, it is the equinox, equal day, equal night. It means we are halfway between the solstice. So we are 3 months before the summer solstice in the Northern Hemisphere, and we are 3 months after the winter solstice here in the Northern Hemisphere, or vice versa if you're in the Southern Hemisphere. So we are in that midpoint where we are now in the upswing of the light. We are gaining more light as opposed to going into the winter solstice. We are losing light. It's sort of course, the astronomy and the physics of it, but there's also the symbology around that as well. So with the sun in Aries, we start a new astrological year. Before that happens, we're in this, the first few days of this week, we are wrapping up Pisces season. We are wrapping up the astrological year. One of the reasons I love Pisces, just on a deeper level, is appreciation, and not necessarily on a personality level, is just this idea that Pisces represents the finality of the zodiac. Meaning the finality of the zodiac is emotional. It's ruled by Jupiter. It's about the search for truth and meaning, the search within, it's mysticism. It is a sign that brings us beyond this world. So the finality of the zodiac isn't intellect. It's not Aquarius or hard work. It's not Capricorn and power, Capricorn. It's actually Pisces. It's a reminder that we all need to have. And so the zodiac is the wheel of life. So we've made one pass since this time last year. We have lived experiences over the last 12 months that have built this cycle. And so we get to Pisces and our lived experiences get transmitted. Where they get transmitted to the great library in the sky. But this idea is that this is what I lived, this is what I went through, this is what I discovered. And the beauty of astrology is that it's a wheel and that we get another pass at the wheel. So we're in this liminal state until about Thursday. Then again, we're still in eclipse season. And then when the sun goes into Aries, it's the energies of new beginning, the dawn, awakening, moving forward, taking action. Aries is ruled by Mars, and Mars is about power and drive and leadership and standing on our own 2 feet. Mars, this is why we have this sort of desire when the sun goes into Aries. I realize this is more northern hemisphere focused, but we have this desire for spring cleaning, this desire to start over, because Mars sort of gets us moving after that sort of transitional energy of Pisces. And so we start a new astrological year and we start a new season. Happy birthday, almost birthday, Aries. The energy of Aries season until April 12th will, not 12th, until April 18th will point over to Cancer. Why? Because Mars is presently in the sign of Cancer. It won't leave Cancer until April 18th. That's why I said that date. And so the energy of new beginnings and the season is then pointing over to Cancer. Both Aries and Cancer are cardinal signs. They talk about initiation. They talk about the 4 directions of our lives. They talk about the 4 seasons, new beginnings. And so this energy of action, moving forward, new beginnings is then pointing over towards Cancer. Home, family, roots, foundation, past, memory, that sort of ancestral memory, our early memory. But Cancer also helps us to find emotional grounding and emotional stability. It again, it's roots. Where is home? And who is home? So Cancer will be receiving the energy of Aries season. And so as a result, we may see changes in the home, changes in our living situation, a need to take action in the home, to contemplate where is home and who is home, to making changes in the home could be quite simply just a project in the home, a cleaning things out, that energy of spring, regardless of what hemisphere you're in, coming into the home environment. But it also may mean that family, home, whatever family means to you, of course, demands more attention. Mars is just a more demanding planet. It's not Venus, even though Venus right now is in Aries. Venus is more the diplomat. Venus is more wants everybody to be happy. Mars is more I want, I need. And in Cancer, it also wants to fight for those it loves. It wants to fight to protect. That's how the energy of Aries is received in Cancer. So it's for us to sort of sit with this Mars and Cancer energy more than we have since Mars went into Cancer on January 6th of this year. And what type of changes do we want to make in the home? Do we need to spend more time with family? Is family a complicated word? Is this time bringing up emotions, the past and memories, or do we want a fresh start so that we can leave behind the ghosts of the past? So it's for us to see how this unfolds, and certainly, sorry, that's my dog, certainly to see how this unfolds even over the next 6 months, because we will have the eclipse on March 29th, and then that will bring the energy of Mars and Cancer with us even into the next solar eclipse, until the next solar eclipse, and this will be on September 21st, 2025. So yes, wonky energy. Just looking at the comments, for those that are watching live, like I said, do say hello. So some of you are my clients. You can book a consultation with me. I do see clients one-on-one, so we can see what this wonky or what this eclipse energy is unfolding in your life, because eclipses talk about what wants to manifest and build in your life. That said, those are the big aspects this week. The sun will meet up with Neptune, like I said, on the 19th, and Neptune is actually poised to leave Aries. Neptune is poised to leave Pisces, if you can believe that, because it's been 13 years of Neptune in Pisces. In total, Neptune spends 14 years in each zodiac sign, so that change doesn't happen very often. And Neptune going into Aries is one of the marquee events for the astrology of 2025, something else I talked about in a webinar. And it's a little bit hard to say what Neptune in Aries will mean, because Neptune doesn't work on the physical plane. It works on more of an ethereal, emotional, psychic level, but it does say that there's some sort of shift in the collective weather that's beginning in April. We'll see. So that is your look at the astrology of this week. Let's now look at each of the 12 zodiac signs or rising sign. You can also listen for your rising sign and see where this week's energy is unfolding in your life. So starting with Aries. So Aries, it's almost your birthday. And for those that are celebrating a birthday, the 19th, the 20th, and even to the 23rd, happy early birthday. This birthday season comes with one more eclipse in Aries, sort of this closing out of a very dynamic time in your life. That's just the thing. Every 9 years, 8-9 years, you have eclipses in your sign and also the sign that's opposite you. So it's for you to reflect on 2023, 2024, and even into this year. And certainly when Saturn gets into Aries on May 24th, it's just it's a big time to be in Aries. So sit with what you're feeling. You're probably already seeing the transition points. I can think of a couple of Aries in my head and sort of the Rolodex in my brain. I'm like, oh yeah, I can see the changes already starting to happen. The energy of your season and certainly the energy of the eclipse goes right to your home environment, changes in the home, changes in the household. It could be a move, it could be a baby, it could be just needing to change your living situations, it could be starting a new chapter with family, and maybe even, again, to the baby comment, starting a family. So that's not going to be 100% relevant for every Aries, but it is a dynamic 6 months ahead for you, one of new beginnings and one of where you need to put down new roots and new foundations and start to answer the very simple question of where is home and who is home. We are just coming off of an eclipse in Virgo. This continues to echo and to reverberate in this eclipse with the spotlight on health and wellness, but there might be something that you need to take action with, even though the eclipse was a few days ago, because the energy of the eclipse pointed back to you. Mercury is in Aries at the moment, so I realize Mercury is now retrograde. This doesn't mean that your life is on hold for the next 3 weeks until the middle of April. I forget when Mercury turns direct. But it does say that you need to not just knee-jerk reaction, use your instincts, fly by the seat of your pants. You need to take a step back and contemplate and to reflect, consult your intuition, and make sure that whatever choice that you're making is the right choice for you. Taurus, so Venus is your planet, and so Venus actually will meet up with the Sun this week. And that sort of signals to us that we are halfway through Venus retrograde. So yes, your planet is retrograde. Next week it will go back into Pisces, where it'll finish out its retrograde on April 12th. Typically right now, this is a time, especially with, Saturn's going to go into Aries in May. We have an eclipse in Aries just around the bend. It's a time of transition in your life. Every Taurus will live this differently, but for some Tauruses, it's to focus on your spiritual life, to sort of nourish the things that actually fulfill you. But you also may feel like something is coming to an end, something is on transition. And I used the example in my introduction about another Taurus. Maybe there's a part of your life that you need to take a bow on. When Venus goes back into Pisces next week, we'll talk about this more next week, where the energy of the retrograde is to go back to this idea of community and connection. Venus is always about what do you love and what do you value? What do you invest in? Whether you invest in material, you are a Taurus, it's property, it's assets, it's money, it's typically stuff. But I think with the energy of the 12th and the 11th that are very highlighted right now, it's not necessarily about your physical world. It's also to invest in the things that actually feed you on a much deeper level. And maybe to invest in things that are more in alignment with something that you're trying to create on a bigger level in your life that's more value oriented. But the idea is that while Venus is retrograde, you need to do a work. We all need to do a work when our planet is retrograde. And that's part of this time, is to contemplate, to reflect, because when Venus turns direct, you may feel a little bit differently about things, and this will be on April 12th. So we are in eclipse season. This eclipse season put not you in the spotlight per se, but it put this idea of self and identity and who are you, and who you're not, and how you share yourself with the world in the spotlight. But this, again, something is in transition, and maybe that's this idea of who you thought you were versus who deep down inside you actually are. Gemini, Mercury is your planet, and Mercury has just turned retrograde as of March 15th. So not to worry. This happens every 3 months. But Mercury will be retrograding in Aries. And Aries for you, I think it goes back into Pisces. Yep, it goes back into Pisces. I actually do not have that on my calendar, but it will turn direct on April 7th in Pisces. So Aries for you is something called your 11th sign. So there's a lot of focus right now on 2 areas, the 10th and the 11th. The 10th is career, the title after your name, the role that you play in the world, your power, your public life, this sort of culmination, or the beginning of a culmination of this time in your life where you've needed to answer a question like, what do I want to be when I grow up? The 11th, it's about your community, your social circle. It can take the energy of the 10th and put it out into the world. It could be about your influence in the world. It could be about social issues and social causes. It could be like putting your ideas out there, and even networking on a professional level. There is something that you're going to be retracing your steps on, and this will be from the 15th all the way to, I think I said the 7th, April 7th. And that might mean that if something is unfolding in your community or your social network or your social circle, or even in your career, it might still be sort of playing out into April. So maybe don't make hard and fast decisions right now. I'm of the belief in general, you don't stop your life just because the planet is retrograde. We all have to live, but a retrograde is a yin energy. It's not a yang energy, meaning it's receptive, it's not active. It's not moving forward, it's reflecting. It's pulling back. Again, we can still live our lives, but we need to consult our intuition. We need to take a second look. We need to rethink maybe the direction that we're going, either professionally or in, towards our future, and to maybe think about differently our hopes and our dreams and our wishes for the future. But this is this is a dynamic time to be a Gemini. We haven't even gotten to July yet, with Uranus going into Gemini, but this eclipse puts the spotlight on home and family, changes in the household, a move, a need to balance out your professional life and your public life with the things that actually support you and nourish you. Cancer. So the moon is your planet. And so this week, the moon, it's going from Scorpio, where it is right now, and then it's pretty much ending the week in Aquarius. So Scorpio for you is a fellow water sign. So it is about you right now in the sense of how you express yourself, your talents, gifts, and abilities. We get to the middle of the week, the energy moves towards work and projects, health and wellness. By the weekend, which Saturday is the last quarter moon, and this last quarter moon is a week before a solar eclipse. So it's to see what is happening, because sometimes we see an eclipse at very predictable points, even if that point is before the eclipse. This weekend is about relationships, connection, exchange. This eclipse that we will have on March 29th is about your career, your public life, the roles that you play in the world, your responsibilities. It's actually the last Aries eclipse that we will have for another 8-9 years, but it is the last eclipse in a series of eclipses. You had 2 previous eclipses in this part of your chart. This was back on April 20th of 2023, April 8th of 2024, And then the last one will be March 29th. It's been a dynamic time in your life, a dynamic time in your professional life, or your relationships with duties and responsibilities. So maybe this weekend you need to connect, you need to make sure that there's a partnership and relationship in your life. That doesn't have to be a capital R relationship, but we're not meant to do life alone. And then maybe that sort of deeper emotions, intimacy, vulnerability, and trust, that might be more of what you're focusing on Sunday. That said, we just had a lunar eclipse in Virgo. Virgo is something called your, your third sign. And so this might be a time where there's a big focus either on education, that could be literal, like you're taking classes, you're learning something new, but it also could be getting into broader questions about what do I believe in, what do I stand for, like what are these classes leading me towards. I need to figure out my place in the world. And all of this is in advance of some bigger shifts to come when we get into end of May and even into June. But we'll talk about that when we get there closer. We get closer to there. Leo, the sun is your planet, and we are in eclipse season. And while these eclipses are not necessarily in your sign or in sort of big signs for you, it will be an eclipse of the sun. So this will be on March 29th, and so this will, in a way, get back to you. This eclipse will be in Aries. Aries is something called your ninth sign. The ninth sign is a place where we start to figure out what we believe in, what we stand for. The ninth sign talks about a need for education, a need to seek and explore, a need to travel the world in some cases. But the ninth is where we fill our life with knowledge that we've gained outside of ourselves, education, our own desires, our own motivations. But there's this deeper time that you're in, Leo, and this deeper time that you continue to be in. You've been in something that I call the 8th room. This has been since March of 2023, so it's been 2 years of a lot of soul searching, getting into the deepest parts of yourself. And then that's because Saturn right now is in Pisces, so when Saturn goes into Aries at the end of May, you begin to sort of concretize into form, what do you believe in? What do you stand for? That said, this eclipse, it is Pisces season, and so you are in the 8th room with Saturn at the moment. This will take you into the 20th, so Thursday. You may feel more like yourself when we get into the sun in Aries. Aries is a fellow fire sign, of course. This eclipse that we just had was in Virgo. Virgo is a money sign. It's about how you earn a living. It's like what you need. It's it's how you take care of yourself. It's the basics, for example. And so for some Virgos, for some Leos, this is about money. It is about property. It is about assets and resources. But for some Virgos, it's like, do I have enough? Do I feel safe? Do I feel secure? And it might be bringing up a lot of emotions. So with the next few days, while the sun is in Pisces, just give this time its sacred time. Because certainly when you get into a fellow fire sign, you just want to rush off and do what you do, Leo, which is to shine like the sun. Virgo, Mercury is your planet, and Mercury has just turned retrograde, so don't worry, it's no big deal. But every 3 months your planet turns retrograde. The idea is that a retrograde just represents the natural ebb and flow of life. So you have 3 months where Mercury is in some cases racing ahead, and then you have that 3 to 4 week period to reflect, to integrate, to gain new perspectives, to consult your intuition, to be in more that yin phase, receptive phase of energy. Mercury will be retrograde, I think I said until the 7th. It will go back into Pisces, but right now it's in Aries. Aries is something called your 8th sign. So maybe deeper emotions, feelings. Can I trust? Do I have enough? It could be about money and assets. It could be more about intimacy and vulnerability. I'm pretty sure I said this last week, but there's a lot of stuff going on in relationships for Virgo. And certainly relationships, whether it's capital R relationships or lowercase r relationships, these are our connections, our socialization. We don't live in a vacuum. We have people around us. But with the energy going over into the 8th, Aries, it might be bringing up sort of these, like, we need to be vulnerable. We need to figure out who we can trust and who we can't trust. It's not to set these really hard boundaries, but we need to have that softness. And that's part of, I think, what is opening up, certainly with this Aries eclipse that's coming up, and even with Mercury in Aries right now. It's to have the people in your life that are really going to be a support and to enrich your life, for example. But we just had a Virgo eclipse just this past March 14th, so Friday. And so you are in the spotlight, whether you are a Virgo sun or a Virgo rising. A lot of my examples about the eclipses, people from the news, surprisingly, a lot of them have Virgo moons. Maybe you don't, maybe you do, but the point is that you're in the spotlight right now. Whether it might not be obvious, but there's a lot of focus on your sign. Eclipses tend to reverberate. Sometimes we need to get 3 weeks out, or 3 weeks, or even 3 months out to really see what this time is building. But whatever is happening, it's connected in some way to the lunar eclipse that we had in Pisces back on September 17th. So it's about you, it's about other people, it's about opening up and like allowing other people to help you. It's about how you take care of things and even what you owe to people. Sometimes Virgo just naturally wants to help to the point where it takes on too much. Take a leaf out of your buddy Pisces Libra, your next sign over, and Libra's always like everything has to be in balance. So maybe this is also an eclipse season to remind you to put things back into balance. Libra, so Venus is your planet, and coming this weekend, we sort of hit that halfway mark of Venus retrograde. So Venus spends 40 days retrograde. This retrograde season pass from Aries over to Pisces, and then it'll get back to Aries. When your planet is retrograde, it's not a fate. The world doesn't fall apart. Don't worry, but it's a reminder that life has an ebb and a flow. Things go forward, things go backward. We inhale, we exhale. When Venus is direct, which it is for a lot of the time, it only turns retrograde every 18 months. It's a time when life is not moving forward, but it's more active. But we need the retrograde to give us a different perspective, a chance to catch up, a chance to catch our breath. And certainly to listen more to our intuition, because receptive energy, yin energy, is intuitive. It feels, it needs to go back to the past. It needs to look at things. So this is part of the deeper work of a retrograde. And there's always a work to be done when a planet is retrograde. And most planets are retrograde all the time. Jupiter all the way to Pluto spend 4 or 5 months out of the year retrograde, but in terms of the personal planets, they turn retrograde the most frequently. Anyway, so Venus is retrograde in Aries, and there's something that's going on about relationships right now. It could be capital R relationships, it could be lowercase r relationships, meaning you, Libra, do not live in a vacuum. You are surrounded by people, even if it's the person at the coffee shop, even if it's when you're walking your dog, and it's to connect and to socialize with people. But with the retrograde, there's something that you need to go back to. Could be to look at things from a different perspective. I forget, was it 2017 when Venus was retrograde last in Aries? Maybe there's a connection to 2017. But Venus will go back into Pisces next week. Pisces is a space that's about health and wellness, service. What do we owe people? How do we help? How do we heal? How do we show up for our relationships, for example? And Venus will turn direct on April 12th. So there's something that's still working its way out. We just had this eclipse. This eclipse was in your 12th, so it marks some sort of transition point that you are in. And then in a week and a half from now, we will have a solar eclipse in Aries. There's that sign again, it's your relationship sign. And it's just a dynamic time to be a Libra. I know I've said this the past couple of years while we've had eclipses in Aries and Libra, but I can go through a roster of Libra rising people in my head, and they just got stuff, capital L life going on. They got babies being born, they're getting married, they're getting divorced, they're moving. That's not going to be the case for everybody, but it's just a lot of things are going on for Libra at the moment. Yeah. Scorpio. Mars is your planet, so Mars is still kind of chugging along in Cancer, so it doesn't leave Cancer until April 18th. So Cancer for you is something called your ninth sign. This has been a period, at least since January 6th, certainly September and October, because that's when Mars was lost in Cancer before the retrograde, where it's been about what's called the ninth. What do you believe in? What do you stand for? What's your truth? What's your faith? What hill are you dying on? I'm joking, Scorpio. But this idea that the ninth shapes externally our world, in the sense that for some of us, what we believe in, what we stand for, it's based on the things that we read, the degrees that we have, the places that we've been. For some Scorpios, it's about travel and exploration, the need to find answers. But we've been talking about this, and it's just to continue to put it on your radar. Mars is in this very long opposition to Pluto, so we have that last Pluto opposition on April 26th. This continues to be a time, even though Mars is not retrograde anymore, so you sort of had this work from December 6th until February 23rd to go within, to work on your relationship with power, your relationship with desire. During that work, you needed to face yourself and perhaps see something about yourself that you haven't wanted to sometimes acknowledge. We all have that part of ourselves. And so that last opposition might mean that April into May, it's kind of interesting, but it hopefully represents the culmination of this work that you've been doing. When the sun gets into Aries, it's a fellow Mars-ruled sign, so it sort of gives you a little bit of a boost. Aries season for you is about operations. Like, we all need operations in life. I have my schedule. This is what I do. I go for a walk. I go to the gym. I go to work. And that's how your life runs. Having Aries as your sixth sign, sort of a reminder why Scorpio is so good at being a workaholic sometimes, but typically Scorpio is very motivated to create order and to create structure. This is the last eclipse for the next 8-9 years that will be in your sixth. For some Scorpios, this has been about health and wellness. This has been about making changes in your health or diet. And for some Scorpios, it's about making changes in your day-to-day life and trying to reprioritize and restructure the operations of your life. Just had an eclipse. That eclipse was in Virgo. Virgo is about friends, community. Who are your friends? Who do you want to invest your time in? The people that you really are solid people, because that's sort of getting into, I think, some of the deeper themes with this eclipse. And we will even have another Virgo eclipse. This will be on September 21st. So Scorpio, a lot of things are changing. I know you are a sign that apparently loves change. My joke is that Scorpio will change when it's good and ready. So this is just a time where Scorpio needs to reorganize, because maybe the old systems, as stubborn as you are, Scorpio, are not working anymore. Sagittarius, Jupiter is your planet, and Jupiter is in Gemini, and it still squares Saturn. I know, it just means that 2024 and 5, it's like things want to become solid. Things want to become real in your life. And certainly with this lunar eclipse that we just had on the 14th, a couple days ago, put the spotlight on your professional life. You have not had an eclipse in Virgo since 2015, 2016. So this is a time where things may be changing in your professional life. It could be your professional life. It could be your relationship with duties and responsibilities. It could be propelling you and motivating you to get out into the world. That said, it is Pisces season, although we are wrapping up Pisces season. So this has been a time to refocus on home and family and your living situation, and to revisit that simple questions, plural, that I've been proposing to you over the past 2 years. Where is home and who is home? We're not done with Pisces. We will have an eclipse in Pisces on September 7th. I know in 6 months, Saturn will leave Pisces and it will come back into Pisces September 1st all the way to February 14th of 2026. So this just continues to be a time for Pisces, for Sagittarius to really structure, to put down roots, to really get clear about the life that you are creating, because a lot of work has happened in the last 2 years, and even some work will continue. That said, when the sun goes into Aries, it's a shift of seasons, certainly a shift of elements. It's a fellow fire sign, and maybe you need that fire because you've had a lot of Saturn on you the past couple of years. So fire energy is creative. It's like, I want to have fun, I want to play, I want to do the things that light me up and give me joy. So maybe it's a little bit of a vibe shift when the sun goes into Aries. It does point the energy over to your 8th, so it does bring up these sort of deeper emotions about trust and intimacy and power, but nevertheless, it's to use this time to get back to the things that light you up and give you joy. Capricorn, so Saturn is your planet. It's still in Pisces, although not for much longer. I know it's been a really long time with Saturn in Pisces, and I think it's to take what you need to take from it, because every time Saturn changes signs every 3 years, it's a different chapter of your life. Pisces, and what's called the third, because Pisces is your third sign, this has just been a time to really try new things, to learn, to focus on classes, and Capricorn typically as a sign can get very no, it's like this. Capricorn is like typically a plan follower and a rule follower, but there's been a permission the last couple of years to try new things, to try new perspectives, but also to listen to your intuition. This eclipse that we had just on the 14th of March, so a couple of days ago, was opposite Saturn and Pisces. So it's to check in, like, what's going on in your life, because maybe a lot of things are happening. A lunar eclipse is typically very dynamic and sometimes even intense. It just is. It's the moon. It's a full moon. But it could be it's a time of transition for you as well. Whatever is happening in your home and environment, take note of it, because we will have an eclipse in Aries, what's called your 4th sign. This will be on March 29th. It could be changes in the home. It could be changes with family. It could be the need to put down roots. It could be the need to answer a simple question: where is home and who is home? I say pay attention because Saturn will change signs on May 24th and start to bring its energies into your 4th. It's a shift of seasons. It's a bigger shift because it's an Aries. Aries is a cardinal sign like you. And it will sort of solidify and concretize some of the seeds and the experiences you've had over the last 1.5 to 2 years into something. We will see. But that said, Capricorn, we just had an eclipse in Virgo, and Virgo is something called your 9th sign. I think with the Saturn opposition, it's an eclipse, and certainly even though the eclipse was a couple of days ago, it's still with you. It's still with us. It's still reverberating. You need to make some sort of either decision or a commitment, and to get very clear about something. And it could be something that's about your path in life, because the 9th can also represent a path in our life, a path that we take outside of ourselves to discover and to learn new things. For some, it is about travel. This time was very travel oriented, and maybe you're just making a decision about where you're going to go, what you're going to do, maybe even what you're going to learn. Aquarius. Aquarius. So Saturn is your planet, and start to note that Saturn will leave Pisces on May 24th, just 2 months from now, 2.5 months from now. And that's going to be a shift in the time of your life. But right now, it continues to be about value, whether that's material value, the things that you own, how you are earning a living, what you're spending it on, to even self-worth and value. The idea is that when Saturn goes through the second, depending on the person, because we all have different lives, it's to create stability. It is to create material stability in your life. It is to know exactly what's important and what's of value and what's not of value. It's part of the work that we do with Saturn in the second. We just had an eclipse in the 8th, your 8th. Virgo represents your 8th house, so maybe a lot of big emotions coming up, questions about the future, looking within. Sometimes when we have a full moon, not an eclipse, but a full moon, it sort of gets into these more tender spots, trust, intimacy, vulnerability. A lunar eclipse just sort of amps that up. And this lunar eclipse is talking about needing to make some decisions, and maybe even to make some serious decisions. And certainly these decisions could be about money and assets and planning and financial planning, and even the estate. I know, Scorpio for a moment. That said, we are just a week and a half away from a solar eclipse. The solar eclipse will be in your third. So this is, you're sort of coming to an end of a period, Aquarius, where it's been either about travel and exploration, or a need to get new perspectives, to try different things. That's the thing about the third, is an Aries for you. It's this ability to... we need new perspectives. We can't sort of say, no, it's this. Aries for you represents like trying new things. So it's hopefully been this breath of fresh air the past couple of years with eclipses in Aries, of trying new things. That said, Aquarius, it's just, you, even though this eclipse wasn't in your sign, the one that was on the 14th, you kind of got roped into it because it was opposite Saturn, was opposite you. Just take note what's going on in your life. How does it connect to anything from last September when we had eclipses in Pisces? What do you see the threads that are coming into your life? Because that you will revisit them, perhaps, whether in June when we get to Gemini season, or even when we get to the next round of eclipses in September. Pisces, so Jupiter is your planet, and it's still in Gemini, so the energy of your sign continues to point towards home and family. We all live that differently, but we all, as humans, we need a roof over our head. We need a place to call home. If it's not the physicality of home at this time, then it's the emotionality of home. Where is home? And who is home? We want to feel like deep in our soul, like we want to feel like we have a home, or we have people. Take note that Jupiter will begin to leave this space on June 9th. So this has been, at least for since the middle of last year, a time to really make things real, make things concrete, to put down roots, to take on new roles, to take action in some way. When you look back at this time in your life, Pisces rising, in theory, 2024 and 5 and even 2023 will be like, in theory, should be milestones in your personal life. If you feel stuck, you are in the midst of eclipses. It's not to be stuck. It is to see the engine of time and the wheel of time to move in your life. We just had an eclipse in Virgo. This was on March 14th. This eclipse was in relationships. You haven't had eclipse in this part of your chart since 2015 and 2016. So whether this is about bringing new people into your life to socialize more and to connect more, or even a capital R relationship in your life, or even to put more focus on a capital R relationship within your life presently. But it is not a time to feel stuck, Pisces. It is certainly a time where a lot is being asked of you to show up, to take responsibility, to set boundaries, to build, to construct your life, but also perhaps even to have new people to come into your life. Pisces season, the end of Pisces season, it doesn't mean we have to say goodbye to your birthday season, but Aries season for you represents a time to focus on your material life, to figure out what do you need, you know, whether it's a roof over your head, whether it's certain resources, to really to know your value and worth, and not to set a monetary value to that, of course, but to know what is perhaps worth your time and not worth your time. So there you go. That is your look at the astrology of March 17th through 23rd, 2025. So again, my name is Katie Sweetman, and this has been Empowering Astrology. Thank you all for watching. I know I see the same very familiar faces every week. You can book a consultation with me. Some of you are my clients. You can go to empoweringastrology.com. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Spotify, I'm on YouTube, and I hope to see you all next week. Take care. Bye-bye.